when he got killed, he lived long enough to had his picture of his wife and 2 kids laying on his chest. They were just laying there. There weren't that shrapnel had cut them up. And when they shoot the right time for, it was one that burst after the other. It was just mowing them down. There was nothing they could do. They couldn't run back. They had no shelter. They just took it as they came. A guy named Orndorff, we would take a prisoner, and he said, "I'll take him back." He was going to carry him back to the stockade, and he wouldn't be gone long, and he'd come back. "Are they all right?" Yeah, he said they're in good shape. He had shot them. I could hear them screaming as they were coming out it blew them out of the church steeple, and they were coming down onto the ground. I'd go to bed crying, get up crying about having to kill somebody. And I knew if you didn't kill them, they were going to kill you. I wanted to tell you about Dachau. We saw a boxcar sitting on the track, and we went down to it, and it was still sealed. We cut the seal on it. It was full of dead people. And it's terrible to see something like that. I had American soldiers killed in front of me, side of me, on each side, and the rear of me. It depends on what they were firing at. They could have machine guns, and they put out a lot of bullets. They were strafing us with machine guns, and ever so often there was a tracer bullet would go over your boat. And then when we looked up, the boat was on fire. Oh, I've seen them with legs and shot in the head, and the arms, and they would be still trying to move it along. Their legs, they got maybe got a mine, and but the worst one was LaRue Smith. But we had to keep moving, and we couldn't go to him. So many was getting killed that we were getting new recruits all the time. Well, there was a dead German right in front of me. It's either kill or be killed.
The true story of Ernest Marvel, farm boy to war hero. This interview and many others have been made possible by the generous and continuous support of Garrett Bolus. Thank you, Garrett Bolus, and God bless you, sir. If you would like to join Mr. Bolus and make sure the frontline testimonies of World War II veterans are preserved forever, please go to www.rememberww2.org/donate. Now to the incredible story of Ernest Marvel, a Delaware farm boy who became a bona fide war hero.
Sent us overseas, Palm, New York, and we rode. We were coming out about dark, and all of us, we was running in our mind, we might never see the Statue of Liberty again. and some didn't. But a lot of us did. And on the way, we hit a big storm that night. As big as this ship was, 22,000 troops on it. As big as it was. And they give you apples, tangerines, oranges, because a lot of them got seasick. And I went down that first morning to the mess hall, and they were throwing up all over the table. And I went back to my room. With 3 days and 4 nights, we landed in Glasgow, Scotland. And just before we got in there, they cut the motors on it. And they said, they come over to the loudspeaker. There's German planes overhead. Prepare to abandon ship. And but they lost us. They didn't have the radar they have now. So we landed in Glasgow, Scotland. And then it took all day long. And we went from there to Southampton, England. And they bombed it and strafed it all day long. And at one time we had they stopped the train and get underneath of it because they were strafing the train. That night we crossed the English Channel. That's when I got into Lahore, France. And at that time, they'd been bombing it and strafing it all day long. And I saw one horse was still alive. It had blown it up on a roof of a house, and it had gone through it was just sitting there. It was getting down towards the night, and our sergeant come by and said, Marvel, you and whatever my buddy was at that time, you dig in here, or you dig your foxhole. Well, there was a moonlight night. It was winter cold, and there was a dead German of maybe 5 or 6 feet from, and we hadn't seen dead, too much. And we moved back about 4 or 5 feet. And the sergeant come by and said, Marvel, I said, you dig in here, and you dig in here. And then you didn't sleep night. Even if you weren't pulling guard, you couldn't sleep. And you know where that German's laying right out there by you. Even though he wasn't going to hurt you. But this moonlight was shining on him. And what parts that would strike you, shine, you could see the image of it. They put me in Bazooka man, and I was terrible mess. We come into a village or a town, and the Germans had a bad habit of putting machine gun nests up in the church steeples. And when we started in town, our village, they'd mow us down like flies. And I had to knock a shoot of bazooka around up in the church steeple. I could hear them screaming as they were coming out it blew them out of the church steeple, and they were coming down onto the ground. and I could hear them for years after I got out of service, screaming and hollering when they come out of the church steeple. And then I had a German tank. I had to knock the box wheels out, and then I had a phosphorus grenade, and I would shoot it in the turret, and it would burn a hole through. And if it gets hot inside, they would have to come out. And some would come out foreign, some would come out with their hands up. Then we had our other troops with us. They come out foreign, they'd be shot, and the others would be captured, and they'd take them back as prisoners. I had an ammo bar, LaRue Smith. He got killed. He stepped on a landmine. And we moved from one village to the other. We walked in staggered formations. Like one would be here and one here. They didn't walk back of one another because one bullet would go through one and kill two. And he was on the other side of the road. And we were moving along. And he had my rounds, for the bazooka. And he stepped on a landmine and blew his leg right off. And we couldn't stop them. We had to keep moving. And they got our lieutenant would say, "Keep moving, boys, keep moving." And but we found out later he died. He was about 18, maybe 19 at the most. See, it blew his leg off, but he had functions up there, and he was crying. And he was saying, "Help, help, help." And we couldn't do nothing. We had to get the medics to him, but we had to call our medics because our medics followed us and in the formations. Oh, him and I got along great, as far as that goes. If I needed a round after I'd fired one, because they have to load them from the back, see, to bazookas. And they would kill a man out back just fast as it would in front because of the flame of it. And that's how I lost the hearing in this ear from firing the bazooka. And we had Germans flying our planes, and we were to them. And then they strafe us. There was Germans that captured our planes, and of course, towards the end of the war, the Autobahn, you ever heard tell of it? It was 100 mile long, and there was no curves in it. Bridges, they would blow their bridges up. The Germans would. And then they used it for a runway, or flying out, and they call them whiffovers. And they ran out of benzene, gasoline, and towards the end of the war, thousands of planes sitting there, no gasoline.
Mr. Marvel, you mentioned that you were a bazooka man. Did you ever use the M1 rifle?
Yes, I was issued to start with the M1 until they give me, I had a carbine that they give me with. I wore the carbine on this side, the Bazooka on this side. It's a safe rig line. We were on, it was a mile, Hitler had made concrete walkways from one pillbox to the other, all the way around for about a mile. And the Germans would shoot us and from a mile across. And it's hard to hit a person. It's a mile across. But we would shoot back at them. But you never know what. They were made of fortified steel, concrete. You could run a tank on them, on the pillboxes. They would maybe try to run across our road, and you get them then. They always told us not to shoot till the weights of the rise, and if sometimes that was too late, we had to fire, 'cause they got on my nerves. I talked with my preacher, and he said, "Don't worry about it. You were driven to it. You didn't want to do it." Because it got on my nerves. I'd go to bed crying, get up crying about having to kill somebody. And I knew if you didn't kill them, they were going to kill you. They had the snipers in trees, and you had. They would be a squad of us, which are 7 men. And he'd pick off one and maybe 2 before they got him. He'd be up a tree, and they call them snipers. And it's not a pleasant feeling. Knowing they got an eye on you somewhere. Our General Patch was his name, was our general of our division. And he come by, he said, I was number 1 squad, 2, 3, 4. That was 28 of us. He said, we've been flying over this village, and this was in Germany. And he said, we saw no activity. And said, I want you to go in and take that village. Make sure it's clean. And I was in the 1st squad, 2nd and 3rd and 4th, by daylight in the morning. And I think Monaco was in the 3rd squad. And they lined up, and then by daylight we started moving out. And we got out in the open field. They had a Mark 6 tank that camouflaged between 2 buildings, and they started shooting direct tank fire at the ground. It was one that burst after the other. It was just mowing them down. There was nothing they could do. They couldn't run back. They had no shelter. They just took it as they came. and that's when only 8 of us got back. 28 of us went out. We got out on a little tank. We had 3 medium tanks with us. And when they retreated, and we got on them, that's how we got out of it, more or less. They brought us back out. And one of our guys, I think it was Cox, had one of the guys from the second squad. He'd been hit, but he got him. He was hanging on to him on the tank, and he couldn't hold him. He dropped him, and that's why there was only 8 of us got back. There would have been 9 if he could have made it. I don't know his name. Because we were, so many was getting killed that we were getting new recruits all the time. Then after they did their damage, I guess during that day, the Mark 6 tank, it moved out of the town. We had to call for our power. And they come in, and they found it, they bombed it out about a mile out of town. And they had blown it up. Oral Montague was a friend of mine. And he was in the 3rd squad. I was in the 1st squad. He was 38 years old, married and had 2 or 3 kids. But he had, when he got killed, he lived long enough to had his picture of his wife and 2 kids laying on his chest. And when we went back the next day, and there he was laying there. He wore glasses at the time. They were just laying there. There weren't that shrapnel had cut them up. We got back that day. General Patch was our general, like I said, at our division. He talked to us, said, "You guys done a great job of getting back." He gave us a that's when I got that Bronze Star.
I really appreciate, I know this is tough to talk about, these are tough memories, and I just appreciate you so much being open about it, Mr. Marvel, because those men who died, you're like the last person that can tell their story. And they deserve some recognition, people like Montague. And so it's really an honor to hear you tell these.
My greatest experience was when we crossed the Rhine River. They called me and another buddy. They wanted us to crawl through the German section to our CP headquarters and let them know where we were. And we had the foxholes we crawled by. They were a long time doing it, telling them. And we got back. Then we moved out, and when we took the foxholes, they were 17, 16, 15 years old Germans. And they had been in there for ages. And they even smelled. Their clothes had almost rotted on them. And that's why we made it. The grown-ups would have got us, probably. They were scared to death. we crossed at Worms, Germany. And I remember at each hour we were going to move out each hour in the morning at 2 o'clock. And it was so moonlight that we were right on the shore. And the German planes were flying over, and they were so low that you could see the German swastika underneath of it. And we went over a squad in each boat. They called storm boats. They called them storm boats, and we went over in waves, like first, second, and third, and fourth, a squad in each one. And there was the engineer that was operating the motor. Then we had got, and then 3 boats from, they were shooting mortar shells at us, strafing us, and you could see tracer bullets going by the boat. One shell landed in the 3 boats from me, blew it apart. And when we got the other side, we had to worry about mines and booby traps, because the Germans were bad for putting mines out, foot mines, and that's when we when all our platoons got over, our company got there, then that's when they called me. They took me and another guy, and we had to go to find our STP headquarters. We had papers there stating how to go, and it's a terrible feeling. And to know that you could step on a landmine or a booby trap. You know what booby traps are? They were rigged up that if you walked by a twig, they would go off if you hit the twig. And we had to get our minesweepers, the guys with mine sweepers, to come in and go over the ground to find out where the mines were. Then they had regular guys that would come in. If they found a mine, they would go down and discharge it, or, cut the valve on it. Oh, yeah, I was scared to death. I said a prayer every day. And I promised man up above, if you live to get me home, I'll never do no more hunting. And I had 3 brothers that loved hunting, like squirreling and rabbit hunting, stuff like that. I've not done any of it. I don't even have a gun. No, I wouldn't.
So you made a promise to God that if you survive, can you tell me more about your faith? When you were in combat, was there a particular part of the Bible you would read, or what?
Well, we had a Bible that we carried on her, right over our heart. And when we got a chance, we would go over it. And if we got a chance, they'd set up a meeting at your church for us. And we would go from that. God was Protestant, Methodist, or whatever you would call them. And we were taking 5 to 6 villages a day on to Munich, Germany. Well, Dachau was in there, and that was after we crossed the Run River. We took Dachau, and but they would come out and they were just happy to see us taking their country, the civilians, because when we first started fighting, they were in our raid shelters. Nobody in homes at all. In businesses, we got an Opel car one time, a brand new Opel factory, and we were running it with a motor pool. And they put gas in them and they were running it along. And when we got a little break, we would drive it. Same way with motorcycles. Brand new motorcycles. Nobody in it. Same way with jewelry shop. If we could have filled our pockets full, but we couldn't carry it. And then towards the end, before we got to Munich, they wanted the Germans pulled a lot of the German troops off our front, the American front, because they wanted the United States take more of Germany than Russia, because they knew Russia wasn't going to treat them right. And but they would come out and bring us pitchers of beer and bread and eggs and all that kind of stuff. German civilians, they were back home. They hadn't left. This was towards the end of the war. I wanted to tell you about Dachau. We were on our way in, and we had to walk about half a mile. And it was a brick barrack that the extra troopers lived in. And a big white bark tree in between each barrack. And we had to take each and every barrack by combat, or house-to-house combat. Some of them were on guard duty, some was asleep. And when we got up there, of course, with the Germans, SS troopers give us a rough time. And when we finally got settled down, there was piles of dead people. They had two big incinerators. They couldn't burn them as fast as they were dying. About 130 a day died. And it was a big place. And when we opened the door to go into prison, they looked like zombies walking towards us. Nothing but skin and bones, and their eyes sunk in their head. They'd want to hug you, and you were more or less fear. They couldn't help it, but we had to call medics and nurses and come in. And when they had them all over everywhere, nurses and doctors. And within 2 days' time, they had them down 2 or 3 a day. They were dying of malnutrition. And we were there for a week. A couple of us guys, we saw a boxcar sitting on the track. And we went down to it, and it was still sealed. We cut the seal on it. It was full of dead people. And it's terrible to see something like that. And then about quarter of a mile down, there was 3 more boxcars full of dead people. We had to have masks on. It was so stinking.
When you guys went to Dachau, did you have any idea what the Germans were doing to the Jewish people before?
No, we didn't know. We didn't know.
It was a total surprise.
It was a surprise because we were out. We didn't got no news. We were out in the fields and stuff, in the woods and stuff. We didn't get much information, only just through our lieutenant or captain or something like that. But we didn't know what was going on. We didn't even know what the place looked like till we got to it. It was a terrible looking sight. Let me tell you about house-to-house combat fighting. We would go into the house. Sometimes we'd have to break the door down. And when we got in it, we'd have to have our BAR man spray it with the shots. And if we just opened the door, they might be ready to shoot you. And then we would go in and check it out. To see that there wasn't anybody in there. Sometimes they'd be hiding back in the corner. You had to be very, very careful. We would spray it, get our BAR man. He'd come out to spray it with rounds to cause the door to come open. And then we go in and check it out. And sometimes the German soldiers were hiding in the closets, and we'd have to check them out real good. Sometimes they'd be locked from the inside, and we'd have to spray them again with machine gun fire, with BAR. And sometimes they would come out and some would fire on you if you come in. Some guys were unlucky and some were lucky. We Orndorff, a guy named Orndorff, we would take a prisoner, and he said, "I'll take him back." He was going to carry him back to the stockade, and he wouldn't be gone long, and he'd come back. "Are they all right?" Yeah, he said they're in good shape. He had shot them. And we didn't know it until later. And we come across them where he had shot them. He was just a hard-nosed guy. Because it took a lot of hard-nosed guys to do it. I've seen times that the American shot a German, and he fell like as if he were dead. And when they got up to him, he'd roll over him. Maybe if he had a pistol, he'd shoot him. They'd shoot the American. They'd roll him over. I had American soldiers killed in front of me, side of me, on each side, and the rear of me. It depends on what they were firing at. They could have machine guns, and they put out a lot of bullets. Maybe they'd be in a hole. They dug it into a hole. We'd have to grenade in there, kill them out. We'd be on one side of the fence and they'd be on the other. And you couldn't see them, but you knew they were back there. You would have to throw a grenade in there to knock them out. And sometimes, like I said, they would take the grenade and throw it back at you. They had the grenades was about that long, and it had a handle like a hat, wooden handle, but it threw it. Where ours was about that long, about that big around, and had a pin, and you had a little clip like when you pull the pin. And it wouldn't go off as long as you had that clip down. I had frozen feet. The combat boots that we had then, there was nothing. They didn't turn water. And we would go sometimes 2 or 3 weeks before we got a change of socks. And I got so I couldn't walk. And come find it, I had frozen feet. They took us back, and there was more than one of us. They took us back and to the shelter, and they wrapped us real well. Took us, wrapped our feet up, took us out, stuck our feet down in the snow. That's how they thawed them out. German didn't bother us. If we saw one of our buddies get killed or wounded real bad, it would work on you, you know what I mean? You'd almost cry for him. When I came home, I had trouble just in the civilian life. I never got married till I got out in 46. I didn't get married till 49. And I was having nightmares then. And after I got married, I smacked my wife into her sleep. And I'd say, "Get down." And she said, "Well, are you crazy?" But yeah, it was a job to get the civilian life back. Because of that. That changes your whole attitude. What war does. They would maybe try to run across our road, and you get them then. They always told us not to shoot till the weights of the rods, and sometimes that was too late. We had to fire, 'cause they got on my nerves. I talked with my preacher. And he said, "Don't worry about it. You were driven to it. You didn't want to do it." Because it got on my nerves. I'd go to bed crying, get up crying about having to kill somebody. And I knew if you didn't kill them, they were going to kill you.
What advice do you want to give to future generations?
Be strong. I was mostly, and be honest, and I think when you're being honest, people look up to you. And that's my advice, being strong, being honest.